Hey everyone, it's Christine, the Mighty Morphin Fashion Ranger. If you are new to my channel, welcome. I hope that you will subscribe before you leave. If you are a current subscriber, welcome back to my channel. I hope you will leave me a thumbs up or a comment just so that I know that you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you will enjoy this video because I feel like there's been much anticipation about it. People have been asking me about it. So I decided it was finally time to shoot the video. My son is asleep downstairs, so I will either shoot the part with him in it to like introduce you to him either later today or maybe even a different day before I put this up. And I'm gonna move this bag because I hear it like blowing in the wind because of the fan that I have on. Anyway, so this is going to be my labor and delivery story. I was, oh boy. Just revisiting this is like a mess because it was kind of a mess. So I had my 37-week ultrasound, I believe, and they found out that he was still breech. He had not flipped over. So I tried some different positions that I found online, some that my doctor told me about that he's heard that could help. I tried to do pretty much whatever I could to try to get him to flip. He did not flip. So I didn't know it at the time though. So the plan was to do an external cephalic version, which I will discuss that specific procedure in another video because I feel like I have a lot to say about it. But I knew that I wanted to try that if he hadn't flipped so that I can still try to have a natural, well, not a natural birth because I was still planning on them giving me lots of drugs, but at least a vaginal birth. So we had it scheduled for Thursday, December 7th. I was going to go in at 6 a.m. was what they originally told me. They were going to do an ultrasound to see if he had flipped. If he hadn't flipped, they were going to try to turn him from the outside and then induce me so that I could have him vaginally. If not, then they were going to do a C-section to get him out. So I was supposed to show up at 6. I had a doctor's appointment the day before that with my OB, and he was like, hey, you know, I'm gonna be there for all of that, and I have some meetings really early in the morning. So I talked to them. They want you to come in at 8 a.m. instead, but before you show up there, you should call ahead of time just to make sure that they have a bed open for you, because sometimes if a lot of people come in the middle of the night or whatever and they're not already out of those rooms, then they don't have any room even though you're scheduled to come in. So it was about 7:30 and we were getting ready to leave our house on Thursday, and I called and they were like, yep, that's what happened. All of our beds are full. We don't have any room. Nobody's given birth yet. Call back in 2 hours. So I called back around 10 o'clock, got the same sort of answer. Nobody gave birth yet, still waiting, nothing open, call back. At this point I started to get very frustrated because they told me not to eat past midnight and not to drink anything past midnight. So I was starving and very thirsty because if you are a pregnant person, you get both of those things very strongly all of the time. So I was like 39 weeks pregnant, not allowed to eat or drink after midnight, and it's now 10 a.m. the next day. So around 1, I think, my husband called because I was just so frustrated, like I didn't know what to do with myself. He called, he talked to the lady, and the lady said, yeah, same thing. We're still trying to decide what we're gonna do because all the people who have been scheduled today haven't been able to come in because everything is full. So they were trying to figure out what they were gonna do, like push people to the next day, or I don't know what the other options were. But she was like, you can let her drink like 1 glass of water, like 8 ounces, but that's it. If you call, I guess she gave us the option, like if I wanted to eat and just say like screw it and get scheduled for the next day instead, I could. I didn't want to do that because I had already started my FMLA and my like all that stuff for work, and I didn't want it to be pushed to the next day because then they'd be like, well, you didn't have your baby the day you were supposed to, it got pushed to the next day. It was gonna be a mess. So I wanted to wait. So around, I think it was around 3 o'clock, we called back, and my mom called back because my parents had come in from 2 hours away because they knew I was having my baby that day. And my mom's a nurse, so she was like furious with them. And she called and she talked to the lady, and the lady gave her attitude, which I wasn't thrilled about. And she was like, well, I told her husband that it was up to him if she wanted to like eat and get scheduled for the next day, and he never called us back. I was like, false. Because I was with him when he called them, and he told her on the phone, no, we're gonna wait until you hopefully have an opening today. So I talked to her then, because she was like, well, I can't talk to you, I need to talk to her or her husband. So I got on the phone, I talked to her. She was like, well, I think we can fit you in if you come in around 3:45. So 3:45, we get to the hospital, which is only like 15 minutes from my house, and they put me in a room and they do the ultrasound, and he is still breech, which sucks. So they tried the version, turning him from the outside, 3 different times. It was awful. Like I said, I'm gonna make a whole different video about that because I feel like it warrants its own video. But needless to say, every time that they turned him, they'd get him about halfway there and he would slide back to exactly where he was. So it did not work, which I think they told me it was like a 50 or 60% chance that it would work. So it wasn't like super likely that it was gonna work, but I wanted to try anyway. I wanted to feel like I did everything I could. But it did not work. So I ended up having a C-section. Now, the big reason I didn't want to have a C-section, because I know people are like, oh, well, it's not a big deal. Like, I know it's major surgery, but it's not that bad, blah, blah, blah. Well, I've had my appendix out and my gallbladder out. And both times, it was a hard recovery for me. It took like over a week before I started feeling better. It was painful. I was on like medication that made me sleep. It was just not a good time. So in my head, I'm thinking to myself, like, if this is a bigger surgery and those were smaller surgeries and I had issues with those, which I also have a nerve that is trapped in scar tissue from one of those, that I still have to wear a lidocaine patch in order to function in everyday life. I was like, I don't want to have that happen again, and I just don't think it's a good idea. So I wanted to avoid it at all costs. But turns out it actually wasn't that bad. I think the thing that freaked me out the most was knowing that I would be awake while they're cutting me open to get him. But I was obviously very nervous. They took me to a room to do the spinal block thing. The first guy that tried it was the resident. He couldn't get it. Like, I guess he just wasn't getting the right spot, so he had like whoever other anesthesiologist come in and do it. He got it on the first try. Your legs start to get very like warm and heavy, and it's weird because it's like you think you can feel them, but if you try to move them, like, you can tell that you can't actually pick your leg up or anything. It's very weird. But what happened after that was, after my legs started to feel weird and they laid me down, I started to feel like I had to keep telling myself to breathe. It was very strange because I could feel probably up until like I could feel like my chest. I could feel maybe up until like where my rib cage starts. So it was so weird. Like, it's a very strange feeling to describe to someone because you have to kind of tell yourself to breathe because it's almost like it like paralyzes your lungs too, because that's in that same area. So I told them that I felt like it was kind of hard to breathe, and then I also told them that I started to feel kind of nauseous and like, not like I was gonna pass out, but just kind of like not all there. And they were like, yeah, your blood pressure just dropped. That's a normal thing. The spinal block does that. So we're gonna give you something else to bring it back up. So they gave me something else to bring it back up, and then the table that I was on, they kind of angled it this way so that my left side was a little bit down. And within like a minute, I felt completely normal. And then I got really sleepy, and I said to them as they were like starting to do things, I was like, can I just take a nap? Whatever they give you, I didn't even care that they were cutting me open. I just felt so tired, and I was like, whatevs. And I was just laying there like, Not a care in the world. Cut me open. No big deal. It's cool. So my husband was there with me, and he had told me he didn't know like if he was gonna look over the curtain or not, or like if they would let him, because obviously they put up that big curtain so you don't see what they're doing, but you could like hear some of the things, and I could feel like tugging up, like up here where I still had feeling. I could feel like pulling. It's very weird because it's almost like the top of your body knows that they're pulling on the bottom of you, but the bottom of you is numb, so you can only feel like the residual of it up here. Very weird. Whole experience, very strange. Sorry if I'm saying a lot. I know people hate that and I'm trying not to do it, but I just realized I did it a bunch of times, so I'm sorry. So my husband got up because I think the anesthesiologist was like, hey, you wanna look at what's going on down there? And he was like, kind of. So he said that he saw some guy just taking like a pickaxe and just like, you know, just getting in there. Lovely visual for you, I know. So anyway, needless to say, that all went fine. We had our son. He was 7 pounds, 5 ounces, and 19.5 inches long, which is definitely smaller than I originally thought. At my last ultrasound, they told me they thought he was already like 8.5 pounds, and that was like a week and a half before I gave birth. So I was expecting to have like a 10-pound baby, so everything I brought with me was size 0 to 3 months, and he ended up fitting in none of it. It was all way too big on him. He really needed newborn stuff, which I only had like one newborn outfit with me. So he was definitely a tiny little guy. His name is Anderson Joseph Murphy. I think I've talked about what we were naming him before, but it was lovely. The after stuff with the C-section wasn't terrible either. They gave me the option to have Percocet, which I had with my gallbladder and my appendix surgery, but I chose not to do that because I knew it made me really sleepy, and I didn't want to be asleep while I'm supposed to be like spending time with my child and breastfeeding him and all of that. I didn't want to be more exhausted than I already would be, so I chose, it was some sort of medication that started with a T. They told me it was basically like extra strength ibuprofen that they would put in my IV. And that seemed to work pretty well for me. They gave me that for the first 24 hours, and then after that I was literally just taking regular ibuprofen. I think the part that was kind of I got nervous about was taking the bandages off, because they want you to do that, I think it was like 24 hours after I had to shower and take off the bandages. And the adhesive they used, I had a little bit of a reaction to it, so I had like a couple little blisters, not around the incision, it was just where the adhesive was from the bandage. So that was kind of annoying that I had to deal with that. The actual incision healed super, super well. I didn't have any problems with it. I didn't have an infection. It was all like smooth sailing, really good, not a big deal. Oh, the one thing I forgot to mention about the C-section was that you do have to have a catheter for it. So I had the catheter put in like before they took me to do the spinal block and stuff, and then they took it out after the procedure. But then because that whole process of like the external turning and the actual C-section and everything, I didn't actually have him until like 10 p.m. because they were backed up with other C-sections. So I had him at 10:11 p.m. on December 7th, and then by 6 a.m. I think it was, they wanted me to be able to pee on my own. Well, I got up, and like getting up is a little bit rough because obviously your muscles are freaking out that they were just cut open. So you have to kind of use your upper body and like your legs to get yourself up and not your abdominal muscles. So getting up was lovely, and I tried to go to the bathroom and I couldn't pee. So they had to like re-catheterize me to get everything out. And then I had, I think like 6 hours after that I had to pee, and I did that. They told me that that happens sometimes because the spinal block that they give you can like paralyze your bladder as well, which is great. So, you know, having a catheter twice instead of just once was terrible. I hated it. I would say actually that was probably one of the worst parts of the whole thing, was actually having the catheter, not even getting cut open, not healing from it, none of that. But that was pretty much it. We were in the hospital from Thursday. I think we went home Sunday afternoon, so it wasn't even that long of a stay. I was doing really well, otherwise they would have kept me like another day, but I didn't have any problems. The only thing that I have still noticed 11 weeks later is that there's like a strip of numbness down like the front of my belly, from like a little bit below my belly button down. And I've done like a lot of research on it, and people say that it can take like up to a year for your nerves to like regenerate from where they were cut, which kind of sucks. It's weird that I can't really feel it, especially because sometimes I'll have an itch there and I'll know that it itches, but I can't actually feel it. It's weird. But anyway, that was my labor and delivery story in a nutshell. Like I said, I will make a separate video about the external turning thing and my thoughts on it after having done it. But the next part of this is going to be introducing you to my son. He's super adorable. I know he's 11 weeks old now, and you probably would have loved to have seen him when he was a little tiny peanut. I mean, he's still small. Like, for his age, he's still pretty tiny. He's tall, but he's skinny, which makes no sense to me because, I mean, my husband and I are both chubby people, so I don't know, maybe he'll get chubby when he's older. We'll see. He is starting to chunk up a little bit. His cheeks are getting a little chunky, so he's really cute and sweet, and we love him so much. So I'm gonna introduce you to him. So this is Andy. Say hi, buddy. Oh my goodness. He loves his rock and play. He loves his swing. He was born December 7th. He was 7 pounds 5 ounces and 19.5 inches long. I think his last appointment, which was 2 months, so about a month ago, he was a little over 23 inches and a little over 10 pounds. I feel like now he's probably more like 12 pounds. I feel like he's gained a lot of weight recently, which is good. That's so good, bud. That's so good. And he definitely has gotten taller because some of his clothes aren't long enough anymore. So this is him. He loves music and movement and his mommy. Do you love your mommy? Do you love your mommy? You do! Yay, mommy! He's just the sweetest thing in the entire world, and we love him so much. You're so sweet. Boop, boop, boop. Got your nose. Boop, boop, boop. Yeah. Yeah. And he started daycare about a week and a half ago, and he loves it. Every time I pick him up, he's like asleep because he tires himself out. Oh, and he's tired now because he just ate. So that's him. We love him so much. He's so cute. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time. Say bye!